Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's final bonus upload of the evening. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into this night-ending bonus, shall we? Today's first encounter. On my way home during a college break, I saw something really odd. I had just gotten to 731 via 109, where it runs into Mount Gilead. It was around 2 in the morning, and I've got the high beams on scanning for deer. A couple of miles down from town, the trees thicken up, and there's a crossroads. As I'm coming up on it, doing about 45, I notice a set of eyes pretty high off the ground. Figuring it's a deer, I slow down and get ready to lay on the horn. As I get closer, though, it becomes clear that what I'm looking at is not a deer, but a very large black canine of some sort, standing broadside to me right in the middle of the crossroad. I don't think it was a dog, but I don't see how it could have been a wolf. It looked like a wolf, though. But we don't have wolves, especially not large ones like that in my state. My car at the time was a crappy little 89 Nissan Sentra 2-door with no ACs, and I had the windows down. I'm sure it would have been comical to be a fly on the wall watching me to try to keep my car on the road with my knees as I was trying to roll them both up, because this thing was at least tall enough to stick its head in my window without coming off the ground. I came to a complete stop just before the crossroad, and it just stood there looking at me. Looking intelligently at me. I think the moment only lasted 30 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then it just turned and trotted off south down the road. I had to sit there and process what I had just seen for another minute or two before I could shift back into gear and get going. I don't roll the windows back down until I had several miles between me and it. Today's second encounter. I live near Mobile, Alabama, and I went to see some friends in Tuscaloosa. On my way back, I saw a white dog-like creature standing next to a deer in the middle of the highway. It was similar to the deer in stature, except a few inches taller. It had a sleek body with long legs that bent like a dog's. It had a mane and a tail and came down and seemed to get tangled and clumped at the bottom. It was as tall as my car, a Honda Civic. After doing a little research, I found out a similar described creature had been seen in the triangle between Jefferson, Morgan, and Ottawa counties. I was nowhere near that area, much more south, somewhere between Hale, Marengo, and Clark County. This thing was not a white Bigfoot, as some people have claimed. It also shares the name with an alien-like creature some people have seen in northern Alabama. We're looking for a dog-cat thing. Today's third encounter. I've been reading about sightings of man-like creatures all over the internet. Back in January of 2014, I was driving home from my workplace and witnessed an unexplained thing cross the roadway in front of me. I was at my workplace, a Toyota plant in Buffalo, West Virginia. I was on vacation, but needed to stop by and pick up my paycheck. It was close to 5 in the afternoon. I was driving home on Route 35, and then turned onto Hurricane Creek Road heading towards home. It was dark by that time. There was a wide turn about a quarter of a mile from the highway. As I drove through the turn, something on two legs walked out of the woods and onto the roadway. I hit the high beams, and when I did, this thing turned its head and bore its teeth, running into the opposite trees on two legs. I have no idea what this thing was, but the teeth were huge. It was about 6 or 7 feet tall. It had a snout like a bear, but the head looked like a man. Eyes, ears, and hair. The body had black hair all over it, and it was built like a stocky man, long legs with big flat feet, and arms with man hands. Shocked the hell out of me. When I got home, I told my wife, but didn't tell my daughter. I didn't want to scare her. I've been hunting all over this county all my life, but never seen or heard anything like this. I could only call it the Bear Man. Today's fourth encounter. Never seen clearly, but around 92, while hunting a swamp just before dark here in Louisiana, I was stalk hunting while wading through knee-deep water. I saw a movement through the water at some very thick hedgerow-like brush. At first, I thought it was ducks, so I snuck up to the edge of the brush for a clear shot. But when I got there, I could see movement through the thick brush, 6 feet over the water, and at the same time there were small wakes of water coming through the brush every time it moved. I was less than 10 feet from this animal, and I could hear it sniffing the air. It suddenly froze still when it picked up my scent. We were frozen in a noiseless standoff for at least 2 minutes. It couldn't see me, but it was looking for me because it knew I was very close. I knew this was something weird and my situation was not good, so, mostly hidden, I slowly and quietly, over the course of a minute or so, replaced my birdshot and my 12 gauge with 3-inch Magnum triple buckshot. When I raised my gun to ready to fire, it saw me. And when it did, I believe it thought I was closer than expected because the thing screamed like a wild hog being killed 10 times. Very, very hair-standing loud. It then suddenly leapt out of the water several feet, and about 12 or so feet into deeper water, about 8 or 10 feet deep. In that instant, when it jumped, I could see its back or something slightly above the brush. It had spiked hair. When it landed in the water, it sounded like a 300-pound animal splash. It remained underwater until it reached the other side of the slough. When it came out on land, I couldn't see it. I then made a huge circle around the animal to try to cut it off in an ambush. I wasn't really scared because even though it was God knows what, I knew it was scared as well. I mean, I snuck up less than 10 feet on this thing and it had no clue I was there until it winded me. Beside, at that range, a 12 gauge with that load of shot is like being shot 10 times with an AR-15 in one spot. A 12 gauge load like that can put a hole the size of your fist through a wild hog. That's an animal that has one of the toughest hides in the planet. There's nothing on this earth that will survive very long with a ribcage shot from a load at that range. I knew this already, that's why I gave chase to the animal. Anyway, I tried ambushing with no luck. I wanted to continue hunting it, but all I had was a small pocket light. It was about 10 minutes before total darkness. Before I set out of the swamp, I looked and found its tracks. I found canine-like tracks about 4 to 5 inches wide and 6 to 7 inches long. They were bipedal tracks set about 6 feet apart due to the animal running. There's lots more to the story, but I'll leave it for now. I gathered enough info about this animal over the years, and I'm convinced that it can be hunted and killed. It walks on 2 legs and has canine-like feet, so whatever you want to call it that. I just know it exists, and I see it more like an animal than a monster. Today's 5th and final encounter of the night is a Goatman encounter. This happened a long time ago, and was one of the first encounters I've had. I was 9 years old, staying with my grandma on the reservation. I'm Native American, Cree.
And I was only supposed to be there for a day, but then it started to storm badly, lasting nearly 4 days. To this day, one of the worst storms we've ever had. The power was out for maybe 3 days, so no lights, no stove, nothing. The layout of my grandma's house is pretty important. I don't think you could even call it a house. It was more like a trailer house, the kind you see on Trailer Park Boys. It must have been the third night because the day after we ate boiled eggs. My cousin, my aunt, and I were all sleeping in the living room, and from where I was sleeping, you could see through the kitchen window, which is pretty small, about 2 feet by 4 feet. I was awoken by the sound of something talking in a strange voice. At the time, I couldn't think of what it reminded me of, but now, after thinking about it for years, it sounded like a goat trying to speak English. I still don't know what it was trying to say, but I heard, "Hey, boys, hey." I just got the chills typing that. At first, I thought it was just my cousin being annoying, but then I noticed there was this big figure standing outside of the kitchen window. It had its fists against the glass. And then I noticed it was banging on the window. Not hard enough to make a ton of noise, though. I saw the outline of the horn, similar to a big horned goat. Fur covering its entire body from what I could see. And then fucking lightning flashed and I saw its face. Very hard to describe, but it looked like what you'd imagine a Goatman to look like. Maybe a bit more on the goat side. Red eyes, but not glowing. It looked old and rough. Its fur was mostly gray with some brown. The window that it was at was about 6 feet above the ground, or more, I don't remember, plus the trailer burned down a few years back, so I would say it was about 7.5 feet tall. Although that night it stayed in place, but the banging turned into scratching and attempts to speak turned into growls and shouting. Lightning flashed a few times more, and every time I could see the anger on its face growing more and more. I eventually woke up my cousin crying. She came and laid with me until I fell asleep. I had a hard time falling asleep because every time I closed my eyes, I would see those eyes looking back at me. And when I did finally fall asleep, I had a nightmare involving the Goatman. In my dream, I watched him walk over to our neighbor's house and brutally murder them and come back with the decapitated head and swing it around in my face. He was taunting me. Why, I still don't know. What's really weird is that my cousin said she couldn't see it, but she could hear it, the growling, scratching, everything. We talk about it often. And I remember at one point moving to another room and looking outside of the window and seeing its full body, which was not like a minotaur, but a centaur. It noticed me, and that's when I ran back to the living room. Edit, I forgot to mention that morning after we checked outside for evidence. And we found huge hoof prints going from window to window and scratch marks on the window. The prints were probably the size of 2 open hands. Now, I've heard tons of other encounters, and none come close to that night. It was the most scary encounter I've ever had to this day, and I've had lots of things happen. I saw a Dogman, and when I asked a medicine woman about it, she said it was just passing by, and that it was angry because I was able to see it and it wasn't supposed to be seen. I shined a bright spotlight on it, and yup, it looked pretty damn mad. I feel crazy just thinking about it. Actually, typing this, I remembered something that happened around that time. Not to me, to somebody who lived on the reservation. He was a known pedo, and the night he got drunk and apparently saw a deer man. After that, they said he went crazy and killed himself. There has been reports of a Goatman terrorizing kids, but on different reservations. They describe it to be a minotaur-type figure. It's fucked up how there's things out there that we don't know exist. Boggles my mind, really. Wow.
All right, folks, just a quick bonus to end the evening off with. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Guys, thank you for supporting this channel. Thank you for helping this channel continue to grow and go. It really does mean the world to me. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real, they're out there, they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop looking for answers, and God bless you all.